Hi,
Well, you
I
don't
would
have
like to discuss something here that I think is very important. And this is just an assumption that I'm making right now, but I just came to the conclusion myself as I was talking to my husband about the Faroese Islands. I'm coming to this conclusion that from all the information that I have heard now about the Faroese Islands and these local whale butcherings that they're doing, and they're selling it as a tradition and so on, and they're defending it tooth and nail. And when I tell them about ecotourism, that Baja California is the role model of it, and when I tell them that they can really boost their local economy and nobody has to go ever hungry when they do ecotourism, when they have visitors come and enjoy the beautiful Faroese Islands, and when they grow their own orchards and their own food, they can also use greenhouses for things that needed warmer. I gave them all the information on it. They didn't come back after that. Only once in a while they came back with the same old arguments they had in the very beginning. So I feel like they don't even want to hear about the solutions. And then I heard that after the whale hunt, they call it the grind, they give, it's some kind of like a alibi function. They give the meat away to the Faroese people from the whales, and reporters have observed that the Faroese local people, they throw that meat right back into the ocean, throw it overboard. They don't want it. They don't even eat it. They know it's full of mercury, it's contaminated, doesn't even taste good. Same with the Japanese, they don't eat it either. So, and this also applies to the Japanese whale hunt and the dolphin butchering, and basically butchering all over the planet. And that happened in Russia with the canned hunt, the bear hunt. That was even more explicit. So that's how we find out what's going on in the world actually. In Russia, they had tourists come there, butcher tourists. This is the opposite of ecotourism. The butcher tourism is what they also have in Africa. They call it canned hunt. They have like a territory where they have wild animals in there where they can't get out. They can't even escape. And then they have these people like Ted Nugent and James Hetfield and the sons of Donald Trump go there. They pay millions of dollars to those canned hunting facilities. And then they go out there and then they shoot these animals that can't even escape. That's called canned hunting. And they had that in Russia, and Vladimir Putin outlawed it with all of our help. Every animal rights activist in the world, we all helped. We all signed petitions. We all wrote personal letters to Vladimir Putin. We helped IFAW, and Vladimir Putin signed new laws to completely outlaw that canned bear hunting. Like it's not like canned, but it is. What happened there is the mother bears with their babies, they hibernate during the winter months. They're basically in some kind of a coma, hibernation state, in a den. They build themselves dens, and then they keep themselves relatively warm in there, and they go into a hibernation state to make it through these very, very harsh Siberian winters. And in those states, I don't know how long they're in those states, maybe half a year. And while they're in those states, they don't move at all. So the hunters can basically just go there and shoot them. And that's what they have done. They would shoot the mother bears and they would gut them right in front of the babies. and the babies would be screaming in terror. And then they would just leave the babies there to basically starve to death. So I know that Vladimir Putin cares about animals, and when this came to his attention, he signed that into effect that this had to be outlawed. It had to be banned right away, and they did it. So I don't know if that's still going on in secret, which wouldn't surprise me, because there's always people who break laws, of course, particularly when a lot of money is involved. But it is definitely not legal anymore in Russia now, and so the law enforcement can now go in there and they can clean up the situation, and they can arrest people and so on. And they can also ban people from coming to that country if there are foreigners from other countries who come there in order to do this shooting and gutting. And so they're gutting the bears because then they make money on the gallbladders, which they sell on the Chinese herbal market in quotation marks. So there's obviously a demand for that. And then also the gutting is, and the shooting is definitely the reason why these people go there, like the sons of Donald Trump. They enjoy killing. That is, they see that as their chance to basically legally kill, butcher, and Ted Nugent even had the nerve to say it publicly. He gets a spiritual erection from it. And that is definitely, that's definitely very revealing to all of us who have just stood before this, shaking our heads in disbelief and just being completely confused why anybody would want to do something this horrific and just go through all the trouble to travel half around the world, even go into a zone like Africa where it's dangerous, where they can be killed themselves, and go through all this trouble, sweating and packing up and danger and even war zones, and pay millions of dollars to do it. So why would anybody want to do this? Okay, I come to a very bleak conclusion. Those are sadistic people, and they have the need to kill and torture innocent life. And they see that as their opportunity to do that legally. And that's what I've been talking about before when they did the turtle test. 20% of the population drove into the middle lane to drive over the turtle, even risking a head-on collision, just so they could drive over the turtle. It was a rubber turtle, but it looked real. So it was filmed, and psychological test that was done a while back. 20% of the people in that, on those freeways. And those are the people who are risking it because they want it so bad that they're willing to risk being arrested. Okay, then we have another probably whopping percentage on top of that of people who would also like to do it but are too afraid to be arrested. That stops them from doing it. So, and there was this case of Finnegan Gage. There was a railroad worker. The people who studied neurology know about that case. Dr. Robert Sapolsky talked about it. There was somewhere at the turn of the century, he was a very kind, gentle person, and then all of a sudden he had an accident where an iron rod went right through his brain, and it incapacitated a specific region in the brain that had to do with reasoning and with, I think, something in the prefrontal cortex. correct me if I'm wrong, but it destroyed a region where he was no longer having these reasoned thoughts before doing anything. So he became a violent criminal after that. He survived that accident, but they operated it out, but brain was permanently damaged. It didn't grow back, and so he just became a violent criminal from then on. And it kind of like tells me, so if you remove just the reasoning, the prefrontal cortex action, it's a loop between the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. And when the prefrontal cortex action is bypassed, that happens sometimes in states of severe stress, then these people, they don't reason anymore. They don't look into the future and plan ahead in any way. There's no reason coming in that prevents them from doing a specific emotional act out. So I believe that actually in people who have real deep caring and compassion, even if you incapacitated the prefrontal cortex, they would still have the compassion. They would be more emotional, but they still have compassion. I have kind of experienced that on my own, because when I'm in states of panic, I had a panic attack in 2012, and my prefrontal cortex was bypassed, as I have learned later on, because after that I watched numerous presentations by Dr. Sapolsky to find out what actually was going on with myself. And my prefrontal cortex was often bypassed between it was a loop between the hippocampus and the amygdala. And I was in a total state of panic and all of this. I had anger too, and rage and all of these things. But I still had compassion, and I still did things out of compassion, for another living being. Okay, so I see now that the percentage of humanity not having this compassion, this feeling for someone else, another living being, this empathy, that's what true love is, the empathy where you really feel that other life, that other living being suffering or in danger, and you just can't help but go and help them. You have to, you're compelled to help. That's what all Sea Shepherds have. They all have this extreme love ability. And I advise people not to take offense to what I'm saying and not get mad or jealous or whatever, but instead aspire to become like this. If the whole world became like this, we can create a paradise on planet Earth. We could do it right now. We can make a U-turn right now. If everybody became loving and compassionate, or at least tried to become like this through meditation. Vipassana meditation is an excellent meditation technique that has already given people the chance to become more compassionate towards others. And instead of hate, just feel more what the other person feels. Everybody has feelings. Everybody has their stories. All the animals have needs, just like we have. They're very, very similar. And the most similar are the chimpanzees and the bonobos, and then the sliding scale. And the ones above humans are the whales and dolphins. They're much more cognitive, much more compassionate. We don't have much of a communication ability yet, but they're working on this. So later on, we'll be able to learn a lot from them, much more than from any other philosopher. It will be equal to the Buddha. most people do not have this compassion. So when there's fear of the police, fear of hell, or fear of daddy punishing, it's an old ingrained fear that people carry with them, or fear of being ridiculed. That's a big one for most people, seems like it. The fear of being ridiculed and shamed by society. So that's a driving force for so many negative act outs. And so most people only somewhat behave because of that fear of the consequences. And that's on the Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's moral reasoning scale at the very bottom. That's a number one level. He calls it the toddler level. The toddler doesn't know much about other people's feelings, or he just know, oh, there's another living being, and it's kind of like friend or toy, sort of. And the toddler, when the toddler does something, temper tantrum, and the mother gets angry, or dad, and people should never get angry at their toddlers or children, ever. But toddler only understands, this action will have a consequence. So they cannot do any other moral reasoning at that developmental stage. And then as they grow older, they learn that there are certain rules in society, and that's just one level above the toddler stage. And then as they get older, they will maybe have, they will feel somewhat compassion, or somewhere in the middle, in these middle stages. I forgot now in the exact detail, but it's usually more like obedience to convention and laws. People don't want to break the laws. That's the most important thing. But it's all basically goes back to the same toddler type of mentality. And then the people on the very top, the sixth level of moral reasoning, does abide by the laws, but when there's a situation that requires the person to rescue someone else, and if the only way to rescue this other living being is by breaking a specific law that is in effect at that current time, then that person will ignore the law in order to save that other life. And that's the highest level of moral reasoning. That's what most people, I've talked to a lot of people, most people do not understand. They cannot go to that level for some reason. And that's why people are very quick to label animal rights as terrorists, because they only go by the law. I talked to a person before when the sea lion had a bend embedded in his neck, and I was desperately trying to get help, and the only people who were willing to help me were people from Sea Shepherd, Paul Watson's former wife, Allison. And so we had a veterinarian also who had been helping Sea Shepherd, and I called this wildlife permit lady, and I talked to her, and I tried my very level best to talk her into giving us permits, because you have to have the permits or you get arrested. And we tried to do it all as the most possible legal law, just totally. I am an activist who does everything legal, because I don't want to put myself in a bad situation where I get in trouble with the law. I don't want that. I have a family. I want to live my life as law-abiding as possible, And I want to be here for my family. My family comes first. If I didn't have a family, then I would probably join a group and help them. But so far I have a family, and I have to do everything legally, and that's why I tried so hard for months and months and months, as the sea lion was there with this oozing wound, and we didn't have any time left. He needed help immediately, but no, we had to go through all of this, and I finally got the wildlife permit lady, and she treated me like she was ultra arrogant, and it was kind of like a game for her. And when she wanted to know who the names are, I probably shouldn't have given her the names, but she needed the names, and then she heard the names, and that was it. She's probably an extreme right-wing Republican who hates anyone who has a bleeding heart, and unfortunately the ego latches onto these kind of things always too. Like when they see someone with a bleeding heart, then they hate him because their lifestyle is not caring, and so their whole identity is attached to this non-caring lifestyle and views and all of this and beliefs and Christianity. And so then they hate anybody who cares. And she treated me like hell. It was unbelievable how she treated me. I was shocked about this. And I forgot the name now. Anyway, as I brought up that the moral reasoning scales by Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg, and I said that they do what they can, these people, they try to rescue, and they put life above these social conventions. And she started hollering at me, and then she hung up. And so these are the kind of experiences I have been through numerous of those kind of experiences and discussions. We've been in 2 local groups that seemed okay with what they wanted to be doing. We wanted to help, all legally, all totally law-abiding, everything, like the absolute super citizen, And yeah, the people just couldn't get anything done. They didn't agree on anything. They didn't accept any common sense ideas from Paul and myself. And it all ended up that they basically only wanted to do fundraising, and they wanted to raise money and somehow get money for themselves or something. And that is happening on a large scale, and in a very, very large scale, and it's unbelievable how all of these people in these very large organizations that are also calling themselves ocean conservationist groups. I'm not going to name any names right now, but I get their fundraising emails, and I put them into my spam folder because I know what they're all about. It's just, I just need to see some of what they're doing. They do nothing. And they do basically do what these people that were in charge of these small groups did, that we joined for a while, and we helped them a lot. We did a lot of fundraising for them. They got match grants and so on because of our help. And they really hated to let us go, and even got mad at us. Even one lady even yelled at me when I started to question a little bit about something. And then later on, they did unbelievably, horribly corrupt things that further confirmed what we've already noticed and observed. But this same thing is happening on a very massive scale with massively large organizations. and they are taking the cake from the donations from all these kind people that are donating. And the people donate, they just don't know better. They think that these ocean or wildlife conservationist groups, that they do this or that, or they do so much, or what. But it really boils down to this one thing, and this is very important for me to say this. Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, and they're the real conservationists, and they have the right to call themselves that. Those are the only ones, or one of the, definitely the absolute, the largest, and they do the absolute most for wildlife, for ocean animals. That's their area they work in. They work for the oceans. There's other groups who work to make the laws better for factory farm animals. Sea Shepherd, that the name implies it. They are there for the oceans, and they work tirelessly day and night, these people, and they get more and more challenged, and then we have more and more propaganda from political people who are siding with the corporations, more and more propaganda that goes against them. And you can almost go by this. If the news, or like the average news or Fox News, if they go against a politician or an organization and they slander them, you can almost guaranteed be sure that that person or organization should be voted for or supported. Because what the corporations hate and fear, like Hillary Clinton, for example, they fear her very much. And they have every reason to, because she has the chance to win now in the next election. And she is going to bring justice to this country, and she's going to rescue the economy of the United States. If anybody is interested in that, I thought maybe you might be, save your own assets and your asses too. So you might want to check out Hillary. Would be good, huh? So, but anyway, but they don't, because the corporations, they fear her because she's gonna get universal health care, and she'll fix your grandmother's teeth, and so that the people will look more like the ones in Germany than the ones here on the streets. So that everybody can get some help, and the elephants will be saved from extinction, and many other things. Active sonar will be outlawed. Active sonar is killing the whales. Hillary Clinton is going to outlaw this. The US military does not want that to happen, because they are owned by Lockheed Martin and Boeing. They're basically owned by them. They've also been given extreme autonomy. The weapon manufacturers basically have both feet in the door with the military and the Navy. So lots of crimes have happened because of this situation, because of this incredible corporate leverage that's going on in the military and Navy. People have been murdered. So that's what I think. It's pretty darn obvious, because I have paid attention since 2000. So I've paid very close attention to what was going on. One Secretary of the Navy was murdered. Well, not long after the Enron executive was murdered. So I have written a research paper about this. I can put the link under the video. If anybody is interested in this, or maybe interested in this maybe a little bit more than some ass twerking. So would be good, huh? To know what's going on in your own country, in your own backyard. So, but I guess a lot of people, they'll just call me a bitch. You dark bitch. I don't want to know about this. That would turn my life view all upside down? My ego is attached to all of this? All of it's invested into it? No, I don't want to see it. Therefore, it's not true. Okay, I'll do what Esther Hicks said, you know. It's all not true because I can't see it anymore. If it was that simple, boy, my goodness, yeah, that feels a lot better to like numb your whole body with dental analgesic, local, and anesthesia, like put yourself all numb so you don't feel anything anymore, and then you can say, oh, it's all great, everything is great. Yeah, that's not going anywhere, and if people have that attitude, or if their income is more important. Oh well, my clientele, I can't show my face because I got a clientele. I got, you know, yeah, it's not going anywhere. If everybody does this and everybody does it, then things are not going anywhere. Okay, we're not going to create the paradise we want to create. So if we want to create the paradise on planet Earth, we all have to help. Every single one of us has to help, has to wake up, has to do some introspection, and has to become honest, has to become straight with themselves, okay? Psychologically. Peace out.